What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the greatest combat sports and coach show, the entire universe, the Fight Podcast. But you know what day it is? You see who's sitting right here next to me. It's CAMM, so it's all things boxing in the Guru's Corner. The Guru is here with us. Guru, what it do, man? Welcome to the show.
What's good, my guy? A few technical difficulties could not stop us today. Happy to see your face, bro. How's your week coming along?
Absolutely. It's the very same, man. No, week is coming along well, man. We just out here, putting out content, making this happen because there is so much going on in the world of combat sports. Not only is MMA in full swing, this is the beginning of the comeback of boxing because boxing is crushing it right now. Now, granted, the whole card, we ain't gonna talk about that, but we're gonna talk about these main events because these main events are absolutely fire. And we had an interesting fight this past weekend. So before we jump into that, B, how is everything going with you? And before I even get to there, everybody who's watching live, thank you so much for watching right now on the Fight Podcast. Not only thank you for checking us out, like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you're looking at the fantastic sweatshirt and you want that CAMM is rocking, and you see how fantastic it looks and how cozy it is, and you see the t-shirt I currently have on right now. Let me sit to this side, move this mic out the way. You see that right there? We have mugs. We have so much, all this good stuff, man. Check us out, etsy.com/shop. That's the Fight Pod Shop. We have some fire stuff there. B, how cozy is that sweatshirt you rocking?
Oh, man, it's solid. It's solid. I love a sweatshirt. I'm about to get another one.
So hell I'm talking about. Let them know. We got some new designs coming out soon. So that is a dope thing. So check that out today at Etsy. Now, granted, I don't know what the hell Etsy got going on right now with their banking and shit, but Silicon that shit is wild.
Is Etsy wrapped up in that?
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's their main bank. So people who are having their stuff there are having their money getting released slow. So
they gotta be fully protected.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But people are getting their money slow. Just they send us an email letting us know. By the way,
hella eventually.
Check that out. What was that?
Hella eventually.
But it's all good. We know what it is. B, boxing. This past weekend in Sydney, Australia, the son of Tszyu, Tszyu, goes out there and fights Detroit's very own Tony Harrison, the former champion Tony Harrison. And look, I'll be honest with you. I'll kick it off with this. I thought this was going to be an entertaining fight. I think Tony Harrison is a dog in all the great sense of the phrase and words. But between you and I, that Tony Harrison that took Jermell Charlo to the brink twice did not show up. And for those who do not know, Tszyu goes out there and stops the former champion Tony Harrison in the ninth round viciously. I'm talking about hit this man with like 5 uppercuts in a row. It was rough. Yo, B, watching this fight, how surprised were you seeing the destruction? Because Tszyu, a lot of us said even before it, we don't know how good he is because we haven't seen him in there with anybody. Well, we've seen him in there with somebody now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised. I think they did a really good job of the build for this fight. You look at a lot of core boxing fans felt like Tony Harrison could do more than he actually did. They felt that way because of Tszyu's performance against Terrell Gausha, where he actually got dropped in the first round. They say, hey, Tony Harrison's a step up from Terrell Gausha. He's a really good mover. Tszyu tends to be a little bit more flat-footed as he pressures his opponents. He has a really good jab. We figured, hey, Tony Harrison should be able to move around the ring. He should be able to use that jab and take at least a lot of those early rounds and make it interesting down the stretch. Now, we know Tony Harrison does have some stamina issues. So down the stretch, 9, 10, 11, 12, we figured it might turn into a bit of a brawl, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get to 12 rounds and maybe get a Tony Harrison decision. But though that's what the boxing community was saying. On paper, this was meant for Tszyu to get a knockout against Tony Harrison, and that's exactly what he did. Tony Harrison didn't live up to that narrative. He came to the fight and just didn't have any legs. I don't know if he walked or swam to Australia. I don't know what he did, but he showed up to the fight with no legs. Now, he's 32. You think of a fighter's prime. A lot of people will say 28 to 31. Some people say the end of your prime is 33. The fact of the matter is, it's going to be different for every single person depending on how you treat your body. And what I noticed early on as I'm listening to some of the shoulder content leading up to the fight, listening to all these interviews, one thing I noticed was that Tony Harrison said he was already in shape. He had started training with Alicia Baumgartner, and he said he was like 3 weeks before I got the call, I stopped drinking and smoking hookah. And I was like, huh. In general, he's just not living the life.
First of all, my man been drinking and smoking hookah. He is definitely a nigga from the block. Like that is like he is from Detroit.
I didn't even know smoking hookah was on the table. Like niggas smoking hookah is kind of a crazy thing to me. I know we smoke some weed, cool, 420 love, but like niggas in a club smoking hookah, you can leave that shit at home. Like, I don't know what Tony Harrison out here doing smoking hookah, but different folks, different strokes. But I do remember back in the day, Andre Ward saying, I told myself when I was a young fighter that I will never let a fighter that's drinking or smoking beat me. And that's what he held himself to his entire career. Now, Tony Harrison, that told me that he's not living the life of a champion. He's not living the life of a fighter. That's going to shorten your shelf life. And that's what we saw play out in Australia. At 32 years old, he came out there. He didn't have any legs. Well, guess what? Tony Harrison already had stamina issues. We also saw that play out in the ring. He never had the best power. We also saw that play out in the ring. And then, one thing that was new is he just wasn't throwing his punches. He used that jab, and that jab looked really good at points throughout the fight. But if it's only the jab and nothing to follow it up, it's not going to be all that effective. He honestly made the fight pretty easy for Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu was able to stand there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Finish up.
He was able to stand there, land his power punches. He used the jab every now and again, but all he had to do was stand in front of him and use that mental pressure, and he was just going to snowball. He was going to get bigger and bigger. As he did throughout the rounds, I think the fight was a little bit closer on the judges' scorecard than the Showtime commentators, broadcast made it seem. But at the end of the day, that was Tim Tszyu's fight from the start. The only clear round for Tony Harrison was round number 1, and Tszyu pretty much took over from there until the knockout. And it was a vicious knockout.
Vicious. First of all, he said during the 9th round is when he's going to turn it on and try to get him out of there. And sure as shit, the 9th round came. He went out there and got rid of him. Granted, 8th round, he hurt him again. He was that snowball was starting to really happen in the 8th round. 3rd round, he hurt Tony Harrison really bad with the straight right. But one thing Tony Harrison that we look at is a high IQ fighter. The way that he was able to go out there and even beat Jermell Charlo was obviously activity and movement. You hit it on the head in terms of when you were saying how he went out there and he has stamina issues. Anytime we have seen him lose, it's because he is up on the scorecards and everyone has to catch up to him. This fight, like you said, aside from that first round, Tim was on top of him. But the thing that got me was the lack of fight IQ, the pulling straight back, the not. It was just. It didn't look like Tony Harrison. It didn't look like he got off the plane. I don't know what happened. That was not Tony Harrison. Even Jermell Charlo said, look, I don't know about it. Like the Tim Tszyu that showed up is a Tim Tszyu that he was training for. Remember, for those who do not know, they were supposed to fight Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu. Jermell Charlo in January broke 2 bones in his hand, but he is healthy. He is coming back. That fight is going to happen next. So when we see that, we hear all those things. Look, man, Tony Harrison really disappointed me in this matchup, but let's talk about the positives. Tim Tszyu going out there in his hometown, got the fire and shit going like it's a Creed movie, and he is first of all, how sick was that?
I love the fire. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it, is cool before the walk-ins. All right, cool. We've seen that before. Yeah. But then you see it going off at the beginning of every round. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And then Tony Harrison goes down and the fire comes up. I was like, oh shit. Yeah. They had a little between that and the small ring, there was a little bit of home cooking there. But that's what you're supposed to do. When you're the A side, you're supposed to do that.
Absolutely what you're supposed to do. But he went out there, did his thing. He is no longer just Costa Zeus and people. If you do not know who Costa Zeus is, I need you to do yourselves a favor and go watch some Costa Zeus fights. I mean, what he did to Prince Hasim, Yo, Prince Asim was that dude back in the day. Am I messing up his name? Prince Asim, top of the British dude with the funky shorts, right? Yeah,
I don't think that happened. That didn't.
bullshit.
I'm actually pretty sure that didn't happen. Maybe you're talking about Zab
Oh,
Judah.
I am pulling it up right now.
Prince Nassim Hamed was a lower weight class. He never fought at 147. Costa Zoo
I'll
was like
tell
a,
you
one,
right
a
now who I'm
147
talking about.
fighter. Prince
Boxer. I know it's
Prince
cool.
Nassim, he only lost to one guy and his career was over.
All right, hold up. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm pulling it up.
Bet you another sweatshirt.
What'd you say?
Bet you another sweatshirt.
I'm cool with that. Let's see. Let's find. Why do they make it so hard to find people's boxing rec? Hold on. Boxing rec. Regardless, we'll find this in a second. Comes out of his father's shadow. Looks absolutely incredible in what he's doing and how he ends up doing that. Let me see this. Ricky Hatton. He lost to back in the day. Zab Judah. Was it Zab he gave the thumps to?
Yeah, he gave the thumbs to Zab.
Yeah, it was Zab. Maybe that was. I was thinking about Zab. Yeah, he did beat. Damn, yo, he beat Zab Judah. He beat Julio Cesar Chavez. I mean, look, Costa's is the man. Okay, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. I gotta go down. Obviously, who are all these people? Roger Mayweather. All right. Regardless. I'll tell you, I'll find who I was talking about. But he did beat Zab Judah, and that says a whole lot, especially Zab at that. You know what? That's the fight I was thinking of. I'm sorry. B, you're right. I was thinking of Zab Judah. All right. Moving right along. I guess I'm out
but
of
Tim Tszyu, you know, Mr. What's My Motherfucking Name? He looked good. He looked good. But I'm not going to put too much on it.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that because there were some things that I saw. Granted, he loads up everything he throws is with power, right? And he looks devastating, especially right now, especially coming off the heels of the win against Tony Harrison. But I have to ask you this: the champion has a name, and that champion is Jermell Charlo, who has dominated this division over the last few years. In your mind, can Tim Tszyu realistically beat Jermell Charlo?
Well, let's remember two things talking about Tony Harrison. So Tony Harrison actually had a great 2 fights with Jermell Charlo.
Absolutely.
Number one, styles make fights. So don't get too caught up in the fact that Jermell Charlo went hell and high water with Tony Harrison, and then Tim Tszyu was able to knock him out. Number two, that was a totally different version of Tony Harrison than Jermell Charlo fought. One would say that Jermell Charlo actually ruined Tony Harrison. So don't get too caught up in that performance against Tony Harrison and said, hey, he did this to Tony Harrison. He's going to be able to do this against Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo is a totally different fighter, and a fighter that, by my sentiments, as long as he's healthy, and we're talking about a hand injury, that's a serious injury for a boxer. As long as he's completely healthy, he's a fighter that's still improving. And I think we saw that in the second Brian Castano fight. Because sometimes Jermell can, get lulled into a slower pace, which honestly doesn't hurt him too much against Tim Tszyu. I don't think Tim Tszyu is a fast-paced fighter. But, Jermell Charlo can do a lot more. He can move, he can hit, and he hits hard. He's not going to rely on his jab. A chin. He has a chin, but he's not going to rely on that jab throughout the fight. We've seen Tim Tszyu get dropped. He doesn't have the most amazing head movement, and he's not a high-activity fighter like Brian Castano. That's the type of fighter that I think is going to trouble Jermell Charlo.
Absolutely.
A fighter that has high activity, but a guy that's at a slower moving pace. He's powerful, but he's not. And nobody is Deontay Wilder, but he's not as powerful as Jermell Charlo. I'll just put it that way. He's powerful, but he doesn't have the power of Jermell Charlo. And so I look at what he brings to the table at the end of the day. His lack of foot movement, his lack of head movement. I don't think he's going to be real competition for Jermell Charlo, but it'll be a good fight because Jermell Charlo, in my opinion, tends to fight down to his competition.
He does. No, I love that you said that. And I agree with you. Between you and I and everybody who is watching and listening right now, thank you. Thank you for everybody who is listening and watching this video. Please make sure if you like it, even if you don't, like, share, and subscribe. Let people know. And I know B got his whole beehive out here. They all signed, subscribe. So we appreciate it. I mean, that's all of our subscriptions right there. That was like 900 people. So let me ask you this, because I'm with you. A healthy Jermell Charlo, I'm gonna say it. I think he scuffs a Tim Tszyu. If you're looking at Tim Tszyu, also he stops him. I think he stops him. Absolutely. I think I think Tim walks into something because as recklessly as he comes forward, as well as there are he throws as if nothing's coming back, and he throws all hooks, all power shots. If you're doing against that against a Charlo, you might be in a bad place. But one thing before we move on to the next point, this will be the last thing we say about this fight, is this. The Charlos, both of them, Jermell and Jamal, they suffer from lack of activity. Is that lack of activity going to hurt them moving forward in these next few fights that they have?
Yeah, I absolutely think it does. For a fighter in their prime like Jermell Charlo, and Jermell Charlo is currently 32 years old. Like, he's a fighter in his prime. He needs activity. And being away from the ring for such a long time, like even prior to him breaking his hand, it was still about a year out of the ring for him. That's just too long out of the ring for Jermell Charlo. Now, I hear rumors, I see things on, boxing Twitter. I hear things that it's very difficult for male boxers to get dates right now. And that's why a lot of the boxers that you love, you see them out of the ring. It is what it is. Now,
I think that's utter bullshit. Like, I don't understand how is it possible that a sport that is essentially only with male fighters, because let's be very honest, boxing barely acknowledges women, barely doesn't even give them the respect to give women 3 full 3-minute rounds. They give them 2-minute rounds. So how is it possible that the men in the sport can't get fights when the men in the sport are really the only people that people watch in the sport? I think it's utter bullshit. I think the politics of boxing are truly hurting the game more than anyone knows. And I think we're starting to even see that with how much some of the, like, it doesn't make sense that we're getting Jake Paul fights 3 times a year, but I can't see fucking Errol Spence, Jermell Crawford, or Bud. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes zero sense.
I mean, at the end of the day,
look, and also Canelo, yes, he's fighting a cab driver right now. Canelo has earned that right. And I rarely say that, but he carried the sport for years. So if this is who he wants to fight today, whatever.
He's also fighting in Mexico, but whatever. Like, Canelo's Canelo
in Mexico City. On Mexican Independence Day, that's going to be a spectacle. I love it.
But at the end of the day, there's so many fighters, and there's only so many dates that you're going to have with the network. I'm not defending anybody. They've kind of put themselves in this position, and the business of boxing is hurting the sport. Is what it is at the end of the day. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Is the lack of activity hurting them? Boxers are going to be sharpest when they're active. These are boxers that are in their prime, and they're not active. They're not going to be as sharp. And a guy who like Jermell Charlo, who I see still potentially on the ascent in his career, is still potentially polishing some of those skills with an awesome trainer in Derek James. He's not getting that activity. And the Jermell Charlo that we're expecting to see could show up as the Tony Harrison that we saw in Australia at the end of the day. We just don't know, because we haven't seen him in over a year and a half. Now, granted, he broke his hand. So that extra 6 months, of that year and a half, he's recovering. That's all fine and dandy. But prior to that, it was a year since he had been in the ring. And, if it had been maybe 6 months since he had been in the ring, he breaks his hand, he has another 6-month recovery, then it's only a year out the ring. But now we're talking about over a year and a half. You're starting to push towards 2 years before we get to see the undisputed champ back in the ring. That's a problem for the sport. That's a problem for the division. And we're going to see that play out. I mean, we'll Tim Tszyu, he's been fighting.
Everything that you're saying is 100% right. And some of these big names that we know and love are going to take L's that they probably shouldn't and wouldn't have taken if they were more active. Everybody wants to be Floyd Mayweather and fight once a year and handpick people. Guess what, people? That era of boxing is over. It's time to move on. salute to Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis for actually trying to fight each other. Salute to them and all some of these other young boys who are doing it too. Yes.
Before we move on, I just want to correct something I said. I said Tim Tszyu's active. He actually fought last year. He fought last year in March. He fought this year in March. So he's not all that active either. So we'll see what happens going forward. But, you know, activity is a problem for the entire sport right now, especially on the PBC side of things.
Awful. I used to be a Heyman guy. I don't like what he's doing right now. I really don't. All right. Moving right along, we're going to rifle through these next few. On April 29th, we are supposed to get Tyson Fury versus Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight titles. But Usyk's manager doesn't believe the fight will actually take place. Do you buy or sell this fight actually happening?
Sell. I sell it. So I do think something is happening. Okay. So, okay. I'm selling April 29th. I'm not totally selling the fight, but I'm damn sure here on fucking March 14th, selling April 29th for the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. No, I don't believe that shit at all. Now, I do believe that something is happening. Something could be afoot because Tyson Fury is strategic about this stuff. In the months leading up to this, he had kind of gone away from social media. But when Tyson Fury wants attention, he wants to start drawing into some attraction to his name, he just gets on social media. If you put a mic in front of him, he will say whatever the fuck you want. He'll say, I killed JFK. He will literally say whatever if you put a mic in front of him. And for a boxing fan like me, that shit can be kind of annoying because he's the heavyweight champion of the world. So guys like Mike Coppinger and all the verified journalists on Twitter, they have to report every time he gets in front of a camera and says some of this crazy shit. But most of it is bullshit. Now, looking through the bullshit, looking at facts, he said I wanted a 70-30 split. Usyk accepted that. So, you know, it's not like all of it's fiction. It does seem like there is some real movement there, but he accepted that just for Tyson Fury to throw something else out there. I think at the end of the day, Tyson Fury's not scared of Usyk, but he wants these big fights, and he just doesn't see that this fight is big enough. He doesn't want to look scared, but he doesn't want it because he's not going to get the type of money that he wants for taking a fight of this magnitude and this difficulty.
No, I think you're right. Between you and I can't stand what Tyson Fury is doing right now. We have been on this very show and have praised Tyson Fury for his accolades in the ring, him coming back. We praised him time and time again. Now I'm going to kind of shit on him a little bit. What he's doing sucks. The way he's playing around with this, it's really one of those you need to shit or get off the pot. One of those moments to me right now. What are we doing? Why are we holding up these belts? Why are we holding up the heavyweight division? If you don't want to fight, look, remember Deontay Wilder used to say, one face, one name. I want to see that. And if it's Usyk, let it be fucking Usyk. But at the end of the day, if you're not fighting, it's unbecoming of a champion. I need to see movement in this heavyweight division. All right, moving along.
There's a lot of names in the heavyweight division. A fight that you know for the fans to watch out for. I know this is not on the schedule, but a really, really interesting fight that I'm excited for is going down. I believe it's April 22nd, maybe. Is it 22nd? No, that's the Ryan Garcia fight. When is this fight? It's Joe Joyce and Zhang. Do you know when that fight is happening?
I'm looking it up right now for you.
April 15th. So April 15th and Zhang Zhang. Is that not the girl's name?
Weili Zhang is old girl's name.
This is Zhang Zhang. He actually looked really, really good against what's that title contender's name? Hrgovic. He looked really good against Hrgovic in a loss, and so that fight is happening April 15th. Something to look forward to in the heavyweight division. You also got Anthony Joshua fighting on April 1st, coming back against Jermaine Franklin, who looked really good against Dillian White. So the heavyweight division is moving ever so slightly. Still some names we're wondering about, the PBC guys, Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, but there is some action on the horizon.
All right. Well, look, I can't wait. I hope we get, because boxing is great when the heavyweight division is great and they're active. Let's just be very honest. As Big E said, in the world of professional wrestling, big meaty men slapping man meat. People enjoy watching that. All right. And that's what we want to see with the heavyweights. All right. Really quick. And I passed this up a little earlier. I want to ask you this. This was on. You like that one?
Can we switch over?
To what? Oh, does it work? You want?
Is it not working?
No, it's not up.
Right.
Once I see you, I'll pull it up. All right, really quick. Right. I had to ask you this, and we can make this one really quick. This past weekend, the prospect, 22-year-old Diego Pacheco, competed this past weekend at 168 pounds. He goes out there, gets a 4th round stoppage. He is 6'4". He looks like he has a lot of skill. Kid comes out of LA. What do you believe Diego Pacheco's ceiling is?
I think a belt is his ceiling. I don't necessarily know if he'll be dominant. I'm moving away from getting way too bullish on these young guys as we see some of these young guys come and be hyped up and then they fall.
Why are you talking about Edgar Berlanga like that?
And they fall just the same. And I think, the ceiling we can't predict, but in the immediate future, that's the fight that Diego Pacheco is going to be going for. He's signed with DAZN. Edgar Berlanga just signed with DAZN. He's in the same division. They're not going to give that fight to Diego Pacheco until the last fight of Edgar Berlanga's contract, because no one's going to want to see, they're not going to want to waste their investment. Absolutely. So they're going to wait until I think it's the 3-fight contract. They'll wait at least till the 3rd fight. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him, not only at 168, but also 175. He's only 22 years old. He probably will grow out of that 168 frame and grow into a big, strong 175 pounder. He looks really good for now. He's able to, make some small adjustments, which I love to see. Fighters have trouble making adjustments.
Good feet.
He made an adjustment on the fly. Has decent feet. I'm not ready to say good feet. Yeah, throws good combinations, and we love a vicious body puncher. He finished Jack Cullen to the body. Beautiful body shot. He was out of there. Could not continue. So at the end of the day, I like Diego.
But no, he didn't just get him out of there with a body shot. He hurt him and dropped him with a body shot, and then he came in and cleaned him up with that solid 1-2, and he just Cullen just fucking crippled. It was crazy to watch. Great, Pacheco. I think I'm with you. I'm not totally sold just yet. I do need to see more. But like you said, I'm glad you brought that up. Edgar Berlanga, the New York Puerto Rican against the LA Mexican would be a great fight. If we end up seeing that, well, I don't know about a great fight, but you can sell that fight.
I think at some point in time, they start talking about, after Canelo handles him, they'll start talking about John Ryder versus Pacheco. John Ryder's kind of a journeyman. He's a journeyman. He's collecting his paychecks at this point. Canelo should walk through him, and then he's going to have his options. There's a lot of guys at 168 that need to verify their name. Diego Pacheco just being one of them. He's not even ranked, I don't believe, right now. So we'll see what happens. But I think in the near future, the next year or two, we'll be looking at a John Ryder versus Diego Pacheco matchup. And then I think one day he wins a belt, but I do see some flaws in his defense that I think at the elite level will be exposed. Everybody's going to look good in the ring against a Jack Cullen, but at that next level, we know it's different, Sergio.
For sure. No, 1,000%. And that's one thing that I look at. And I love that you said that, because again, he has promise. And that's what the thing about all these prospects are. A lot of promise. There's a lot of things that I like. And if I'm looking at the eye test, and that's why, for instance, I'm still high on Jared Anderson. So speaking of heavyweights, right? The eye test, Jared Anderson, to me, was popping off the screen. This kid pops off the screen in his own right. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the future. Remember, he's only 22 years old. He has a very long time before we're even, literally 5 to 6 years before we're like, oh, he is a finished product. You know what I'm saying? So young kid. I love that we're getting some of this young quality guys in there. What was that?
Let's not wait 5 to 6 years anymore. Let's not wait till
I'm not. But hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we're going to wait for that. I'm saying in that time he will mature in for himself. He will be he will be an actualized version of who he can be in that amount of time. Not that we want to wait to see that. I want to see him fighting dudes all the way up until then. You know what I'm saying? And even beyond. But that's what I mean by that.
I've been a boxing fan for a long time. I get easily triggered about these things. You start waiting for fights and everything. You start that talk, I get easily triggered and get anxiety
I
and stuff.
understand.
It's been
Believe
hard.
me, brother. I've been a boxing fan since the 80s myself. I hear you. I absolutely hear you. All right. I could legitimately say the 80s now, which is crazy. That is when I first started watching. I'd be at my grandfather's house sitting here on the couch, little Puerto Rican man always wanted to watch boxing. So he put the big fights on. I used to sit right there and watch them.
I was not alive, my boy.
Hey, it happens. You weren't alive in the 80s period?
1990.
Oh, that's right. That's too bad, man. 80s was a hell of a time, brother. Hell of a time. Hell of a time. Granted, 4 years old. Not like I was. I wasn't outside like that. I wasn't outside like that.
You get to claim it.
I get to claim it, though. I'm an 80s baby, and I can claim it. All right. Before we get out of here, last thing I want to mention, and everybody who's been watching live, thank you guys so much for watching the show. What I do want to go ahead and mention before we get out of here, I want you to go ahead and say this. It's not this weekend. Next weekend, we get Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. I have to ask you this. In your opinion, has Benavidez been a touch, I'm going to say just a touch, too emotional for his fight against Caleb Plant?
He has been very emotional. And that's what in my opinion, that's what you expect with not only a fight of this magnitude, but a fight with legitimate bad blood there. Now, I think there's one thing to be said for a fighter being too emotional, and we'll get there. But to me, I think David Benavidez is a fighter that's fighting with a chip on his shoulder. Caleb Plant represents a lot of what was actually meant for David Benavidez. He got stripped of his title twice, once because he missed weight, once because he was doing some cocaine. And so that title shot for undisputed against Canelo, at some point, that should have been David Benavidez instead of Caleb Plant. Things go as they go. Caleb Plant gets that opportunity. And so I think he's going to be fighting not only, with that beef, but with a chip on his shoulder for everything that he missed out on that Caleb Plant got to experience. Now, coming back, there is some legitimate beef there. And I think it's a healthy amount of anger. I think the only time we start talking about fighters being too angry is when you get, who's that guy? Oh, man, he fought De La Hoya. He was smoking cigarettes.
Talking about Mayorga?
Yeah, like unless you get a guy like unless you get a guy like Mayorga that's like assaulting your wife and your family, that's when I think fighters start to lose their mentality and you start to think, hey, will this affect their performance in the ring? But in terms of David Benavidez, I think there's some healthy animosity there. I think there's a chip in his shoulders, and I think this is going to elevate his performance as opposed to take away from it on March 25th.
I'm skeptical. And David Benavidez is one of those guys that, in the vein of Ricardo Mayorga, feels like he's just out here doing the most. If you have an opportunity to go ahead there and see the Showtime All Access or anything like that, one thing that it is extremely apparent is that anytime he is within eyeshot of Caleb Plant, he loses his mind, and he will go out there. It doesn't matter what Caleb Plant is saying. Caleb Plant will say, "Excuse me," and this dude will be like, "What? Want to fight, fam? The contract is signed. You're gonna fight. The fight. The tickets are sold." He's not even doing a good job in selling tickets, in my opinion, at this point in time. I think he's being overly emotional. And once I see people going in there fighting angry against a Caleb Plant, whom you're right. He can't come out here in his Nate Diaz. You've taken everything I've worked for. Well, guess what? Caleb Plant has never missed weight. Caleb Plant has never done cocaine. Caleb Plant
we don't know that.
Everybody in front. He says he didn't. I'm going to take his word for it. And at least he hasn't gotten a title stripped of him because he took cocaine. And then also, what I'm going to say is that I'm not going to have him essentially sit there and say that, again, Caleb Plant, aside from Canelo, is beating everybody's been put in front of him. He's earned the position that he's currently in. I think this fight is going to be a great fight. If David Benavidez, in my opinion, goes out there and if he has a healthy chip, like you said, that healthy chip could work to his advantage 1,000%. And he is quality enough that he can go out there and capitalize on that. But if his focus is off, and again, we're talking about a game of inches now, especially at the highest level. If he is off his focus just an iota, I'm telling you right now, he's going to have the exact same fate that what's his name? Anthony Durrell had as well. He's going to get put on the highlight reel and get put to sleep. Don't go out there just because you think he's a white boy and think it's sweet. Caleb Plant, sweet hands, Caleb Plant will put it on you, regardless of the fact I'm really, really looking forward to this fight.
I wonder. I think the fight is going to come down to, can Caleb Plant recall that power that we saw against Durrell? Like, what's he working on?
It seems as if he's actually he also has a new trainer, and big
fan of Stephen Breadman Edwards. He used to work with J-Rock, I believe. I think that's where we know that we know him from. Great trainer out of Philly. He's been working with him, and if he's working on landing a little bit more of that power, he's going to have some clean shots on Benavidez early. Benavidez is not one for defense. He's a professional boxer, but he's not one for defense. Even Durrell was able to land on him early.
Doesn't have good footwork either. Has fast hands, though, fast hands. But he kind of plots.
Absolutely. But Plant will have his opportunities early. It's late that Plant is going to struggle. We see him tire a little bit. So, I'm not sure what he's working on there either. But I know you like Plant in this matchup. I just see the script for what it is. Plant comes out fast, gets tired at the end, and gets stopped. That's what Caleb Plant does.
He does not do that because has one loss in his career. So don't go out there and say it like that. That's what he does. That's not true at all. That's a terrible point. But the other side, but if we're saying that he has slowed down, we have seen him slow down. Absolutely. But we haven't seen him slow down like that in a while. It's been a little bit of time. Even in the Canelo fight, you're fighting Canelo. There's no shame in that. It's not like he slowed down. He was still fighting up until the moment that the fight was stopped. And then on the other, but I will say this about not only the moment, but I have to say this also in terms of David Benavidez. Is the moment going to be too big? Caleb Plant's been here before. You're right. In the words of Nate Diaz, he did. You took everything I work for. He did. Because you weren't ready for the opportunity when the opportunity presented itself. So that other man went out there and took that from you. So you can't be mad at him in that sense. I think Caleb Plant is a professional boxer that takes his craft extremely seriously. And every time I see him come out there, especially as of recent, it seems as if he is getting better and better and better. David Benavidez, I think David Benavidez is fantastic. I really think he's talented. Am I fully sold on David Benavidez? No, I'm not. But this fight to me would show me a lot. But I'm not going to sit here and let you go out there and say that's just what he does. He goes out there and gets stopped, because it's not true. He has one loss in his career. He's been stopped once in his career.
I think that's fair, and I'll concede that. What we do know he does is get tired. What we do know David Benavidez does. We have not seen David Benavidez get tired, and we know David Benavidez
fight the same quality people either.
That's absolutely true, but we know he gets knockouts. We know he can tie those punches together, and we know he will get larger as the rounds go on, to where Caleb Plant is weaker at the end of the fight. I think there's a lot of different storylines that can play out here. I think it's more of a 60-40 fight in David Benavidez's favor, but 40% is no small number.
I say 50-50. To me, this is a 50-50 matchup.
I think 60-40, and I think the betting odds will support that.
Why do you think I care about the betting? This is the Fight Pod. We do not care about betting odds here. We have gone against the underdog plenty of times.
We're talking about what we're looking personally. What we're looking at going into the fight.
50-50. I still think it's a 50-50 fight going in there. And the reason I think most people look at it 60-40. The reason I'm saying 50-50 at the end of the day is because I just haven't seen David Benavidez do it at the highest level. And I've seen this other guy compete at the highest level. To me, that little uncertainty has made it a 50-50 fight. But regardless, David Benavidez is fantastic. This is one of my most anticipated fights of the year.
Should be.
Absolutely. All right, man. In terms of boxing, man, I think that's about all the time we got for today, man. Anything else you want to jump in, throw in all the world of boxing news, anything that you want to touch on?
Big shout out to Billy Dibb. He was on Sean Porter this week. I've been following him on Twitter. He has beaten cancer. He's been stayed positive the entire time and went through some tough chemotherapy. Was able to beat cancer. Champion inside and outside of the ring. Really, really inspiring story. So big shout out to Billy Dib.
Hey, Billy Dib, salute to you, a fellow cancer survivor. There we go. He and I both. All right. Moving right. Oh, real quick. Do you want to talk about Pacquiao?
Not really.
Nah. All right, we don't got to talk about it. With that being said, that is all the time. Thank you as always joining me, the guru, B-Cam, each and every time we're doing this, all things boxing. B-Cam, where can they find ya?
You can find me on Instagram at BCAM13. You see it right down there, BCAMM13, and on Twitter at MyWatchedGospel. I'm a little bit more active on Twitter, talking boxing, talking shit at all points in times. Come fuck with me.
There it is. All right, guys. We love you guys. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video. We really do appreciate it. Let people know about the best boxing show, best combat sports show around. With that being said, a lot of boxing. We'll probably be back here next week talking about it with you guys again. Love y'all. We'll see you next time right here on the show. Peace.